Hey, welcome to the Kevin Story Channel. And this is the second day of oral histories. This one's of my life and is actually partially a witness. I want you to remember that as followers of Jesus, we're called to forgive others and to take your problems to Him, and to remember that you do make mistakes, and we all come from mistakes, and we have trauma in our lives. But let's not let the trauma define us, and let somebody, a God, mold you. And I want to share my story. Um, the story takes place in two locations. One is in southeastern Missouri, where there's a Boy Scout camp in the summer of 1973. And there is another story that takes place a few weeks later in northern Illinois, in DeKalb County, Genoa town, where my dad was born and where his siblings grew up, and my granny Stoda lived until she passed away in DeKalb County at the age of 93. I will go ahead and start the story with the part about the Boy Scout camp in that summer. My dad had volunteered to come to that Boy Scout camp. He was the only parent who took a full week off of work. He only got 2 weeks of vacation a year at that time. A full week off of work to come and be with the kids, the boys in Boy Scout camp. It was a very generous thing he did. Even the scout master couldn't find that much time off from his work. So boys were in this camp in southeastern Missouri, and it was a Thursday, so it was already pretty well into the week. My dad came back from after lunch. He told the boys to clean up the meal area, etc. And the boys hadn't listened to him, so he threw a fit. He began to throw things around, even reached out to grab boys. There was only one other parent there who had shown up, again, a volunteer parent who wasn't normally involved in the Boy Scouts, is Mr. Mackey. His son was in my grade, and he collared me and said, "Go over and get your dad under control." Let me back up and tell you a little bit about my father. He was diagnosed at a very young age with epilepsy. I'm not 100% sure he had it all his life. He did sometimes go off its medication, and he had a tantrum, and that's why the title of this is Trauma and Tantrum, because of course the tantrums he had, he was very easy to get ticked off or in a shouting spree, or even swinging at people or grabbing at them, up until I was about the age of 12. And then I never saw him act that way again. Praise the Lord. So I was 11 at that time, and he was out of control at the camp, and I was being asked to go control my father by a parent. I thought that was really. Parents have to ask an 11-year-old who can't control his father at home to suddenly control his father at a Boy Scout camp. And the parents, adults, can't do it. To make a long story short, that experience at the camp left me pretty well disillusioned in the world. 3 weeks later or so, my brother and sister, actually our whole family, had driven up from Winsfield, Missouri to Genoa, Illinois to be with my grandparents for the other week of the vacation. And it was Saturday afternoon or Saturday morning. I'd gotten into my head I wanted to go bowling because bowling was pretty far from my house in Wentzville, and it was in really close walking distance there in the town of Genoa. Um, and it was supposed to be very inexpensive. And I just wanted to do something on a Saturday night with my brother. And so we asked permission to not go to church the Catholic church, on that Saturday night with Grandma, our Granny, and my dad. And I begged. I called down to make sure that the bowling alley would be open. I was told it would be open at 6 in the evening. And to be daylight and to go bowling and come back, we needed to be there by 6. So around 5 o'clock, my brother and I left after promising to go to church the next morning on our own. My dad and Granny went off to church, and we continued, my brother and I, walking downtown to the bowling alley. Now, when we arrived at the bowling alley at 6 o'clock, it was closed. And we waited. And then we did note there was a light in the building, so we kept pounding on the door. And this pounding eventually in me became a tantrum. By 6:30 or so, I was in panic. And partially because of the fact that I skipped church to go bowling, I was thinking, as a little kid, I kept running that through my mind. And I should note, I have attention deficit, and people with attention deficit can be hyper-focused. In any case, I was already disillusioned with the world, and I got out of control. I let myself get out of control. Unlike when I was at the Boy Scout camp, I did not throw a tantrum. I did not yell at my dad or anything, but here was a door, and I was yelling at it, and I was pounding on the glass door, and I even put my back up against it and kicked against the door. And finally, my kicking around 6:35 or so led to the glass breaking. Remember, this is about 1973, and not many windows are made with safety glass in them at that time, even public facilities like a bowling alley. In other words, my foot went through it, and I turned around immediately as the cracking of the glass from the bottom of the door went up, and I put my arm up to protect my face from the falling glass. I cut my hand. You can still see a scar here. And I ended up getting about 40 stitches, and I was profusely bleeding. I could see the bone in my hand, the sinews too. And my brother was horrified. He ran around the corner from the bowling alley up the street to get some help, screaming for help. And I came walking already in shock with my arm bleeding profusely all everywhere. And finally, I came near a gas station where my brother was, and ambulance was evidently called. My parents too. In the meantime, a man, is it a man or an angel? A man in a station wagon from Ohio. It said Ohio. I remember that much about it. The car pulled up, and the man wanted to pump gas for his family. He started that, and then he came over to me, took off his white shirt. He was wearing a nice white shirt. It was what you wear for business or work. I don't know why he was wearing it on a summer day, but it was nice and white. And he wrapped it around my arm as a tourniquet. He was a very quick thinking person. I don't know if he was a doctor. I don't know if he was an angel. But he wrapped it around, made sure the bleeding was stopped in tourniquet form, and calmed me down until the ambulance arrived. And I was then treated by the ambulance people. The white car, I noticed with the man who gave me his white shirt, drove off into the sunrise. And because, of course, it was getting dark by that time. And To me, that was a real miracle because no one else had had the common sense to do that. I, of course, was fully responsible, you know, for my anger. I was just whipping out at things, and partially because of ADHD, and maybe, of course, the trauma of growing up with a dad who allowed himself to have anger fits, uh, had led me to feel I could be righteous, self-righteous, and do that too. In any case, I almost lost my arm that night because of the fit. Um, and the owners of the bowling alley could have pressed charges, etc. I don't know why the bowling wasn't open at 7 o'clock, but in any case, whatever temptations were there at night, I fell for them. Uh, um, so I want to share this story specifically for teenagers. I wasn't yet a teenager, but I was verging on it, and I was rescued by what appears to be an angel or some just a miracle man who came out of nowhere. He just wrapped his shirt around, made a tourniquet, got back in his car after pumping the gas, and left. My dad asked around about who had seen him or whatever, and no one knows. Other people say they didn't even see the guy, didn't recall seeing the man. Well, back to my hometown then, in Winsfield, Missouri, not more than an hour or two from that Boy Scout camp I mentioned earlier. I then had a lot of time to reflect. My hand was wrapped. I had to take care of it for months. Stitches came out. I began to go to Catholic catechism. But at the same time in that year, my mother was involved in an evangelical group, and this evangelical group was cross denominational. It's ecumenical, and she began to take me to prayer meetings, revivals, and get to know these other people who were Christians in the community. So it was really a blessed year suddenly. It was just like for everybody here with COVID-19, stress, tragedies in the world, trauma, and to suddenly know that if I felt alone, if I felt too stressed, I could turn to this angel or Jesus. And I began to have a prayer life, and I considered doing the altar call thing at that time. But I was really a pensive person, and I always have been. So it would be a good another 3 decades before I would get baptized, and at least another decade before I wanted my relationship to Jesus to be a daily family. And I really had consequential talking time and prayer time with Jesus, and of course continued to learn some things about the Bible through the Catholic Church, but to go to other church and here. And from that point on, a walk with Jesus was a regular part of most of my days. And there was nobody to fall back on. If you're alone, I encourage you to start that relationship with Jesus, and also hang around people who can support you in that growth. I wanted to share that with you and let you know that wherever you're at in the trauma cycle, whether you have come from this family or that family, or you've had like I lived in a low income family, you are not defined by your trauma, and you don't always have to be eventually defined by your relationship to your I learned over the years to forgive my dad, from those tantrum years. He would still have some tantrums as he was older, but he would take his medication more often. And I didn't see him so often. But learning to forgive is something that is a lifelong journey. And learning to let Jesus work on your life is a lifelong journey too. I want to thank you for listening to me at the Kevin Stoda channel. And I hope that everybody, including, Katribo Palawan is there. Uh, hello, Katribo, Lawan, shout out. Let's see. Shout out my uh, Katribo Palawan's on there. Good to see you. And shout out to Katribo Palawan. And I also see Ding Grayesa. Thank you for talking to me about this and joining us. Ding Grayesa says, Amen. Walk with Jesus. Shout out to you. Thanks for listening and sharing. Yeah, if you have any questions, comments, or thoughts, you can always write them at the bottom of the blog during the live chat or afterwards if you're watching this at a later date. I've been sharing now about trauma, anger fits in the family, angels, and Jesus, and I wanted to, in this way, share as a witness to you and talk about whatever you want to in terms of that relationship in this and in coming live programs. Oh, it says here, somebody called me Pogi. Oh, that was Katribo Palawan called me Pogi. Pogi is the Filipino word for handsome, I think. Yeah, or guapo in Spanish. Oh, I can't do it. See, never mind. Okay, I'll call you all beautiful. I'll say Dingresa and Katribo, you are beautiful people too. You two are beautiful. Beautiful. Mm. And Katribo Palawan. Yeah, I hope you take time to use your YouTube channel to witness to others. I'll try to do this more often. Yesterday, I talked about trauma and did a live session. You might want to catch that one too. Remember to subscribe to the Kevin Stoda channel and give us whatever comments you want. We'd love to hear. And thanks for shouting out to me. And I enjoy the opportunity to do likewise with you. Again, give a thumbs up and share. God bless you guys.